Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Oh, it's 4. All right. It is 4 o'clock, and we will get started. So we will begin as we do each meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Lori Lindquist.
Present.
Sue Stavanger. Here. Ann Noctigal. Here. Todd Sundley. Here. Mike Begeman. Here. Nick Conlon.
Here.
Rick Weber. Here. We have a quorum.
All right. Way to go. We have also been had the November 20th, 2019 meeting minutes distributed. Are there any corrections or additions to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, it's been approved by Mike and seconded by Jim. Roll call vote, please.
Lindquist.
Yes.
Stavanger.
Yes.
Noctigal.
Yes.
Sundley.
Yes.
Begeman.
Yes.
Conlon.
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, and welcome to all in our audience today. Appreciate you being here today for our December board meeting. There are copies of the agendas, extra agendas, and extra information packets. If anybody needs some, they are up there on the countertop. So help yourself. Feel free to. This is the point in our meeting too, where we offer you the opportunity to make any public input if you are here to do that. If you are here to speak to one of the items that's on our agenda, we ask that you wait and save your comments for that time. But we would like to go around and have you introduce yourself and let us know what you might be here for, specifically on the agenda, and make sure that Rita has your name and correct spelling of your name for the minutes. So we'll start over here on this side.
Stand up. Brian Wagnold, Veterans Park Advisory Board President.
Great, welcome.
Thank you.
Sue Aguilar, Mary Jo Wagner Arboretum, incoming president.
Thank you.
Karen Leonard with the City Attorney's Office.
Mike Patton, Parks and Rec.
Mr. Back over there.
Dan Greider, Great Bearsky Valley.
Toby Maris, Parks and Rec.
Brandon Hitter, City Sioux Falls Communications and Marketing.
Sky Smothers, Parks and Rec.
I'm Elizabeth Whaley from the Great Plains Zoo.
All right, thank you. We welcome you. Oh,
Corey
I'm
Beadle,
sorry.
Parks
I'm
and
sorry, I
Rec.
didn't see you back there. Yeah, okay. You blended in. You both got black on. You blended in. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Well, welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining us today. Report of the standing committees, marketing and public needs. Anybody there at the marketing?
No, there's no special information, I would say.
Okay. Everything's on the agenda?
Everything is
Okay.
on the agenda, yep.
All right. Park System Planning and Development did not meet this month. Partnerships and Recreation, yeah. No, go ahead.
We did meet, we also talked about a couple of the city ordinance that are coming up around fees, but we just had a discussion on it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's no unfinished business, so we are going to move right on to new business, the first item being the Great Bear Chalet rental fee. Kelby and Dan.
I'll start it off here and then turn it over to Dan. But as part of the management agreement we have with Great Bear Recreation Incorporated, the two fees that the park board sets, one is the lift tickets and the other is the chalet rental. And there's a proposal by Great Bear to change the chalet rental fee. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dan.
Okay.
Hello. Dan Greider with the Great Bear. We're requesting that we raise our chalet rental fee. In the summer, we rent out the chalet for weddings and receptions and so on and so forth. We've been charging $700 for at least the last 15 years. We never have requested a rate increase. And as we look, yeah, right. And as we look around, all the various venues in town, we're very, very low. So we'd like to raise ours to $1,000. We still think that's quite affordable for the area and especially for what they're getting. So we're requesting we move from $700 to $1,000.
Any questions? Any
How many
comments?
times is it rented?
Last year we rented the chalet out. It's close to 30 times. Of that, we had 13 weddings booked, and then we do various corporate events and, like I said, picnics and reunions. This year we already have it booked. We have 16 bookings just for weddings next year, and we're just kind of getting into that season, so we've really taken off with that. Great social presence, and Jill makes great food.
Related to the rental, you're opening in a couple of days, right?
We are. We're finally getting open on Friday. We had an incredible 7 days of snowmaking. We started last Monday, 2 a.m. We actually ran out of water on Wednesday afternoon. It was so cold, we were pumping about 1,000 gallons a minute out of the pond, and we can only recharge the pond at 400 gallons a minute. So, doing the math, it won't last long. We fired up again last Friday night, and we've been making snow pretty steady since. Our last good shot's going to be this evening, but we anticipate having at least 3/4 of the tubing hill open, the entire front half of the hill open, our terrain park set up, the bunny hill set up, and we'll start making snow in the back runs tonight. So we're a little tired. It's been a run, but it's great. We've got a laser tubing on Saturday night. Christmas break starts on next Monday. We've Frosty Frolics the first weekend in January, so we're gonna hit the ground running.
Okay, great.
That extra $300, do you have that targeted for any specifically?
Just operation costs, Yeah, I mean, in the summer, it costs, $2,500 to $3,000 just to cool the building a month. So it's just, we haven't added any staff in that line. It's just the overall cost of the operation have just risen in the last 15 years.
Dan, you said you already have some rentals for next year?
Mm-hmm.
Would they get the $700 rate or the $1,000 rate?
Correct, $700. It's $700 until you say otherwise.
Okay.
So that would take effect if we were to get that approvals made, that would take effect for this next season that you're talking about?
It would take effect for any weddings booked after today.
Okay.
We actually have a showing on Friday, so that would be the first one.
Do you have some comparisons to some of the other venues that
Oh,
you've?
yeah, absolutely. The Ikes, I think, is $1,500. They're just up the road from us. You can get into some of the barns that are $4,000 to $5,000. I believe the Overlook Cafe at the Falls there is anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500. You go to the country clubs, obviously they're expensive, even the hotels are. So we've kept our rates low, but it's time to raise them.
All right, great. Is there a motion to approve
I'd
the
make that
increase?
motion to approve the increase.
Okay. I'll second. Moved by Rick, and we'll say seconded by Ann. Roll call vote, please.
Lindquist?
Yes.
Stavanger?
Yes.
Naktigal?
Yes.
Sudley?
Yes.
Hageman?
Yes.
Conlon?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks much.
You got
It'll
it.
be a good season.
Yeah.
Good luck. All right, thank you.
All right, our next item we're going to move on to, and we welcome Elizabeth Whaley here to present the Zoo Annual Report.
Hi there. So we report every year to the Parks Board, and this year we're reporting on 2018, almost at the end of 2019, but would be glad to come back any old time in 2020 and talk about 2019. So I think I need a clicker.
Yep, I think you need to click the left button.
Okay. This is just building suspense. Very exciting presentation to come. This is all planned. Ha. Thank you. I think I'm back in business. So of course, we all know what a zoo exists to do. We teach, we're conservationists. We, of course, are a big part of our city's recreation and discovery, and we're very proud of that multi-pronged mission. Technology is not at the heart of what we do. Okay. There's only 3 buttons, so there we go. A big part of what we do is connecting kids with wildlife, and we believe that every kid deserves a great zoo. Here at our zoo, it might surprise you that we teach 40,000 kids in these very unique experiential learning situations. So for a zoo our size, for a community our size, that's pretty aggressive. But that's really at the heart of building good citizens, people who have empathy. There are lots and lots of studies that kids who don't connect with animals or get out in nature actually have what's called nature deficit disorder. So zoos are important in connecting those kids and making them be smart and empathetic going forward.
Elizabeth, does that include like the Zoomobile outreach as well as programming that you have
It
on
is.
site?
So it's Zoo Cub classes and zoo camps and zoo snoozes on site. It's also a Zoomobile program that goes out about 3 hours around Sioux Falls. So we've got a pretty large draw. We also hit a number of poverty level schools thanks to a donor that's made a 3-year commitment and now just re-upped that commitment. So we get out to 96 poverty level schools every 3 years. And we know that when we teach kids, that'll spark a really good interest in nature and conservation. Of course, as a zoo, we're caring for animals, and our collection includes about 1,000 animals. It's a more exciting animal collection than I think you'll find even in larger zoos and larger communities. I always have to laugh at the Minnesota Zoo, who a few years ago got a couple of giraffes for 4 months, and it was big news. We, of course, have a herd that you can see 361 days a year. That represents about 137 species. Again, for a zoo our size, a community our size, that's a really rich collection. Everything from penguins to snow leopards and Amur tigers, those giraffes, zebras, snow monkeys. We're also accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, and that puts us in the top 10% of animal institutions in the country. We, as a zoo, work more and more in conservation, both around here in Sioux Falls, but also globally. We're a key player in 43 endangered species breeding programs, everything from rhinos to those snow monkeys. We operate a regional rehabilitation center for raptors and other birds that are injured and need our help, and of course, are hopefully turned right back around and put back into the wild once they're healed. We support field projects far-flung across the globe. And coming in 2020, we're really focusing locally on pollinator projects to build habitat and save species. And we've already talked with your parks team about getting out and planting trees as ash replacements that supply really critical habitat for birds and bats. We'll also be working in Minnesota at Lake Benton and Pipestone on 2 pollinator projects. Our attendance has increased pretty stably and dramatically across the last decade. We've increased our attendance about 230%. That goes through 2017, and we have since dropped a little bit, and we'll tell you why. Doesn't surprise any of us that half of our visitors are from inside Sioux Falls. We chart and track our zip codes daily, and about 60% of our visitors live along that I-29 corridor, but again, we pull from about 2.5, 3 hours pretty strongly. Just to walk you through, the Parks Board certainly has been a key part in our progress. And in 2006, 2007, you all approved our master plan, as did the Zoo Board and the City Council. That master plan included a number of improvements because as of 2005, we were about ready to close. And you remember our facilities were sagging and falling down and not appropriate for visitor care or for animal care. And so we appreciate your approval and your commitment to this master plan. And you can see we've moved pretty briskly through a lot of improvements. 2008, the Asian cat exhibit was actually a safety hazard for our community. Now it's this lovely place where you can see 3 endangered species with panoramic viewing, and of course a key breeding situation. So this is a little insider baseball. As of, I don't know, maybe a few more minutes today, we are doing a big tiger swap. If you remember Callie, the hand-reared tiger from a few years back, she is coming back from Wisconsin. She's also hopefully going to be paired with a new tiger that will be new to us, and we're moving another tiger out. So all of these things support that endangered species breeding, and we work cooperatively with zoos around the country. And so that Wisconsin team are going to be here today and tomorrow getting the cats to get to know each other. In 2009, the Hy-Vee Face-to-Face Farm came up, replaced a really literally falling down part of the zoo, the old children's farm. And now we have this great colorful area that's really a magnet for kids and families to feed rare breed animals. In 2009, we brought up Zoo TV with our partners at Sanford Health. It was the first one in the country, and now, thanks to San Diego Zoo Global, it's in more than 100 markets nationwide. So we were the ones that Everyone was calling after that USA Today story, NBC Nightly News, saying, how do we get that done? And now zoos and hospitals in 100 markets have gotten it done. So thank you very much. 2010, Rare Rhinos of Africa. 2013, Monkeys, Magic, and More. And 2018, Fortress of the Bears. 2013, Monkeys, Magic, and More really reshaped the whole front of the zoo, added a nice transparent gateway so that we can get those increased visitors in through the door. And it also won top honors in exhibit design from our association, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, which is in the zoo world a big deal. So 2018 numbers at a glance, we welcomed just under 300,000 visitors. We're told that we're the largest gated attraction in South Dakota. That's a decrease from 2017's koala experience. That's to be expected. Also, you all remember in your parks and in your pools, weather affected all of the attractions in South Dakota, including us. We talked about those kids that we teach. We talked about those 43 species survival plans. And as a community partner, we generate more than $37 million in economic impact. Koalas was a great example of your zoo punching above its weight class, and I think we continue to do that. That, again, was the first time a zoo our size had ever been granted a conservation loan from the San Diego Zoo Global's Koala Loan Program. And there was a ton of permitting, there was a ton of really proving our credentials with veterinarian facilities, and we were really glad. In that summer, only 10 zoos in the country had koalas. So if you were not in 2 large zoos in Ohio or on the West Coast or the East Coast, you had to be in Sioux Falls to see koalas. We've also been invited for national board service with AZA. I hold a role on the National Board of Directors. We do national committee work with a couple of our staff members. So we're really working to continue to be something that Sioux Falls can be very proud of. Last year we opened Fortress of the Bears, which was a great exhibit for us. Took the old Bear Canyon that's really sorely needed renovation. It hadn't been touched since the mid-'80s, and it was part of the original 1963 zoo. And we added a meadow. Thanks to donor encouragement, we were able to put in place a really lush habitat for 4 rescued bears. That project was pretty exciting. We'll talk a little bit more about that. 2019, just a little reminder of what this summer has brought for us. Walkabout Australia, again, taking a really old part of the zoo that's not very functional in terms of animal care, not very dynamic in terms of guest services, and putting in a ton of engaging animals, a ton of really colorful graphics, and getting people up close to animals, whether it's feeding lorikeets or hopping around with the kangaroos or brushing the sheep with the kids or being in a walk-through aviary with kookaburras. We want you to know that you can be part of the zoo in lots of ways. We have events for grown-ups like Jungle Jubilee, and many of you we see there, and we appreciate that. Zubu and Breakfast with Santa and Zippity Zoo Day and Party for the Planet, all of those event days with your kids are ways that you can be involved. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can be a member, and as a Parks Board, we hope that you'll advocate. So a little bit about operating. We have a lot of different revenue streams: admissions, memberships, rides, retail, food service, and of course fundraising. And the city's operating support is 29% of our budget. As a portion of our budget, that's decreased over time pretty dramatically. You see the blue line, and that's the city's support down to 2017. We're now below that at 29% of operating support, and you can see that we've grown our budget to support the kind of zoo that we want to be. On capital projects, the Fortress of the Bears, I think, was an amazing community experience for us, because we developed more than 200 donors. 91% of that $2.8 million project was from private investment. So our citizens got a really good deal, and the city gave us 9%. And maybe if I move back to that, you can see that that has trended downward over time. So Rare Rhinos of Africa was a 1-to-1 match, city and private investment. The Fortress of the Bears, 9% to 91%. So next up is building our community pride. We have Lions scheduled. That has been in the master plan since 2007. And so our national partners are really looking to us to figure out when are we going to bring Lions online, because they need that holding, they need that breeding. These animals are terrific animals, but biologists tell us that they could be gone in the wild by 2030. So zoos are the last chance for us to have lions on the planet. And zoos are working very hard to have good genetics across the population, and that means multiple players have to help. This is an exciting view from the cafe. Here's our kids right nose to nose with lions, and of course meerkats are there too, indoor-outdoor experience. Safely protected by glass, I assure you. And this will allow us to do some good things from a business standpoint. So the zoo continues to really work toward building revenue on its own. So expanding that viewing and also the seating in the cafe. And again, with more than doubled attendance over the last few years, now we need to have more places for people to use the restroom, to eat. And so this will be a great experience for people. They'll be in climate control looking out into lions, or they'll be out on a nice deck overlooking the giraffes and zebras having their lunch. It also will rehabilitate some of those old areas of the zoo that have been around now for about 20, 25 years that could really benefit from new design or from removal and some rehabilitation. So this has been long planned. It's been in the plan since 2007. The Parks Board approved it. The City Council approved it. We were awarded the Chamber Appeals, and so we successfully ran that campaign, and the business community has helped us. We've raised about half of that $8 million project. We've had incredible donor support. But now they're all kind of looking to see where we land in the CIP, and we've made those requests across the last number of years. And that's kind of the missing piece to the puzzle. It's critical to lion survival. Our partners within the zoo world are looking forward to that. And certainly our donors and board and partners would love to move forward with this project. So that's kind of 2018 in a nutshell and a little look ahead. Thank you. Any questions?
Sounds like you have very good private donation support. Do you find that, like, what percentage is coming from new donors versus the ones you've had kind of tried and true?
I think every year we're developing new donors. The good thing is through the Fortress of the Bears process, we had a number of our donors really step up, but also open their contact list and engage their friends. And so that was a moment in time for us where we gained a lot of new donors. That said, what we found in the Chamber Appeals process was our donors are getting tired and they want to make sure that the partnership continues. We've had great success, putting about $14 million in infrastructure in place across the last, many years. That's a lot. That's been pretty brisk movement on the master plan. But with so much of that, I think 70% of that total has been private donors. And so we need to make sure that we continue to find those new donors.
So your master plan was 06, 07, right? Are you in the queue for refreshing that, or are you just making updates every year? How are you addressing that?
So we did a refreshed master plan in 2015, and that really looked mainly at that Africa area because there still exist a number of problems with the Africa area from that old, probably 1995 set of design. And those infrastructure are getting older too. And so it really focused on that, but it also looked at the impacts on the campus. And whenever we do master planning, it's not just landscape architecture, but it's also business forecasting. And so we looked at what amenities we could plug in across time. But really, I think the logjam at the moment is lions because we've been committed to that for so long. It's part of our mission as a zoo. And so we would love to roll out the rest of that plan, but I think we have to get this done first.
Thanks so much for coming and presenting
Thank
to
you.
us today.
My
Very much
pleasure.
appreciated.
Thank you to all of you for helping the zoo. We appreciate it.
All right, our next item, I'm gonna call Mike up to discuss the Wagner Arboretum Society conditional gifting agreement.
Mike will be up there in just a second.
Oh, did I steal my flash drive
Yep,
back?
I've got it.
I have to get to
Thank you. This is an item we discussed in committees. This is the property that we've called Track 6 for some time now. It's a 3-acre property located north of Veterans Parkway in that Arboretum, Perry Nature area. It's also sort of part of the old east historic site of Sioux Falls. So the agreement you have in your packet is an agreement between the Wagner Arboretum Society and the city to gift that property to the city. It will be as is, and we've inspected that for both environmental issues as well as deed restriction documents, and we're comfortable with that. A couple of terms of the agreement are key points. The city will be responsible for the closing costs associated with the transfer. The property itself will be incorporated into the Arboretum site. It will be programmed and operated by the society as long as they have a current management agreement. There will be a deed restriction that comes with the property, so the property can be used only for parks and recreation purposes. And then sort of the big piece is it will be known as the Scott Connolly Nature Area, which we will discuss in a little more detail at the next agenda item. So with that, this agreement is subject to City Council approval, and staff supports your recommendation of that. And Diane Gildemaster is here to say a few things about the property transfer.
Thank you. I'll just step on my tippy toes. Thank you for looking at accepting this property for us. It's been on the list, the master plan, the original master plan in 2002. So we're actually very excited to have this. It's part of the old railroad bed. And so it's beautiful property. It's nice that this donor was able to come forward and give us the money to purchase this. We're hoping to use that as a little leverage to maybe generate some more funds for East Sioux Falls, especially the history part of East Sioux Falls. So I also have Sue Aguilar, who is our new incoming president, that'll take over in January. So is there any questions for any of us?
What are your immediate plans for the property?
Right, it's part of our master plan, which you'll be seeing soon, coming in front of you. But it's, mostly just nature area, and it's potentially going to have a couple of maybe tree houses. The grade of the railroad track is nice and high, and you can actually be almost an accessible grade out to a tree house that would be more at the high, the level of the tree tops. So, and then just a neat overlook at that valley and through there, so, yeah.
Sue, did you have any comments that you wanted to make?
No, I think
Okay.
Mike,
Just wanted to give you an opportunity.
you'll see me later on.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's great property, and we're just, this donor has been very gracious to work through all this with us, so we look forward to having it, so.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, I'll just let you know, if the board recommends accepting this agreement, the next steps will be to go to City Council, and we'll be looking for that in January.
Okay. That being said, is there a motion to recommend approval of the gifting agreement, the Arboretum gifting agreement?
I would move to recommend approval.
Second?
Okay, moved by Ann and seconded by Mike. Roll call vote, please.
Lindquist,
Yes.
Stavinger,
Yes.
Knapkigo,
Yes.
Sudley,
Yes.
Begeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. And our next item, Scott Connolly Nature Area naming application.
Thank you. So these items obviously go hand in hand. The property will be called the Scott Connolly Nature Area. I feel it's appropriate. If you were to walk the site, you'd see that's exactly what it is. It's forested, it's in nature. There's some hiking trails, and it's connected to the Perry Nature Area and the Arboretum, so it makes sense from a name standpoint. One thing to point out, one of the terms for naming it is that it has to be a significant gift to the city, which we feel this is, gifting of the property to the park system, and it requires unanimous approval from both the Parks and Recreation Board as well as the City Council. So pending your recommendation, go forward, it has to be unanimous on both sides. And with that, staff recommends your recommendation.
Okay. Is there a motion to recommend approval of the Scott Connolly Nature Area naming application?
So recommended.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, recommended by Jim and seconded by Rick, thank you. Mick, Rick. All right, roll call vote, please.
Lindquist,
Yes.
Cavender,
Yes.
Knaptigal,
Yes.
Sudley,
Yes.
Bigeman,
Yes.
Conlon,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Next item, Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board decommissioning.
Thank you. You said the title perfectly. That's what this is. We also have Brian here. He's the president of the Vets Park Advisory Board, and he's going to go into some detail here also. So, just a quick history about the board. Brian will elaborate a little bit more, but the board was set up originally by ordinance, and that was approved by the City Council in 2001. Their official powers and duties are to advise the Parks and Recreation Board, the director, the mayor, and the City Council on the design, the construction, and operation of Veterans Park. It's a 5-member board. 4 of them have to be veterans. The list up there is all the members to date, and they've all been instrumental in fundraising and overseeing the design and helping plan everything with the park, and they've been a terrific board to work with so far. So development of the park happened in multiple phases over time. The original master plan, well, let me back up a little bit, and I actually found some interesting information in the files, the old paper files at the parks office. The original thought of it was an idea of I guess it's Monsignor James Andrasco from Holy Spirit. He's father when I went to Gorman. And it was kind of a ad hoc group of people that wanted to get this idea together, and they started looking at different sites and where could it be and all that, and eventually they realized they needed to do some planning, and they brought Confluence on, which we've worked with in the past, that at the time was TSP, but they did a master plan for it, and that was approved in 2001. And then in 2002 they did some demo and prepping of the site. In 2003 they actually built the ponds that go through the park, and that serves not just as a really neat water feature for the park, but it actually helps with the drainage in that neighborhood. So it was a good environmental project on top of the park improvements. In 2004 and 2005 they kind of did the bulk of the park development. One thing I'll note that the board raised over $550,000 to help support that project.
And Mike,
Which was-
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, that the board was started in February of '04 with Larry Ritz as our first president.
Great.
FYI.
FYI. But that's a lot of money, especially at that time frame, for park development. And since then they've raised another couple or $250,000 plus for sort of some add-on projects like the going home sculpture and other art pieces with the project. So one thing I'll note, the park is beautiful. You've obviously been there. It's won 2 awards, both ASLA, American Society of Landscape Architecture Awards. The second one, the 2008 award, the Central States, that's a really tough award to win. That's not just South Dakota and North Dakota. That includes Nebraska and Missouri and Arkansas and Illinois. That's Minneapolis. I mean, that's a big award to win. It's a huge honor. So it just shows how great a park it really is. Since the park has been fully built out now, and all the current operations in the park are sort of handled by, or not sort of, they are handled by park staff, and that includes all the mowing of the grounds, the weeding of the landscaping, the trimming of the trees, and the paver sales that go on. That you approve each month, and not just the sale of them and organizing of that, but also the engraving and the installation, which is a good revenue source for the park itself. The board did help come up with the original policies and guidelines, how the park should be handled. It's a place of reflection, not a place of excitement. So they kind of helped organize how the park should be operated, and that's in our policies and guidelines now. The major event that happens there each year is Flag Day, and that's been a great partnership, and that's coordinated with city staff and can continue to go on that path. And then all the other special events you see in the park go through our regular special events process. So this is sort of the wrap of the presentation here, and so I'll just go over the past couple years. There's been a real shortage of agenda items, and really that stems from the fact that the park is really built out and it's operating really, really well. And I, I'll let Brian speak to this, but, they feel that they've fulfilled their mission as far as getting the park developed to this level and operating so well. And so we sort of support the staff supports their decision to dissolve. So with that, I know, Brian, you've got some stuff to talk about, and so.
All right, Mike.
Go crazy.
Thank you. Yes, quickly, as I introduced myself earlier, I was appointed August 5th to the board, August 5th of 14, and voted president February of 17, and then reappointed February of 18. And as Mike said, our board, of course, was originally to advise and consult the Parks and Rec Board as the building of the park proceeded. Well, as things evolved and developed, the park now is basically I say it's a living, breathing, wonderful tribute to our area veterans. And our board we were meeting every 2 months, and it got to the point where we were just basically reviewing paver sales. And we'd get together for half an hour, and that was basically it. So we decided, our last meeting was February of this year, and we decided to decommission the board. And so it was moved and seconded and voted unanimously to present that to the Parks and Rec Board to decommission our advisory board. So with that, that's about all I got.
So just a couple things to add there for next steps. So the board was created by ordinance, so it has to be dissolved by ordinance. So we wanted to come before the park board first and get your recommendation. And then the next steps will be to go to city council and run an ordinance, which will go through the steps of what we went through also with them. So we can, that's it.
Brian?
Yes.
Maybe just as part of that conversation we had with the board, some of the ideas that I think you had shared is that there are multiple veterans organizations in the area, like the Chamber Mill Vets Committee.
Yes.
As being a resource for us, if we decided we needed some counsel regarding a veteran-related item or something like that, would you kind of hit on that a little bit?
About, you mean about decommissioning the board and talking to our other organizations, or?
Just if there was ever an item that came up that was veteran-related, where we want some veterans to weigh in.
Oh, sure, yeah. And of course, I'm very well connected with the veterans, with a lot of organizations in town. I also belong, it's our Chamber of Commerce Military and Veterans Affairs Committee. I was actually past president of that. And I also sit on about 3 or 4 other veteran boards. And yes, we are available to consult and advise any projects that do come up that are proposed for the park. Don, Mike, I mean, they'll call us and we can literally join and assemble and provide advice and consultation for that. But yeah, Don, like I said, our last meeting was February, and of course the word kind of got out that we were decommissioning the board, and literally there's been nothing negative, anything talk about it. So it's kind of a moot point. So yeah.
My only point with that is, as Brian brought up during our board meeting, is that there are multiple organizations out there. If we need resources from the veterans groups,
yeah,
they're out there.
A lot of them, yes. Yeah, we're out there.
We call upon if we have something we need to run by them.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, on behalf of the park board, thank you so much for the wise counsel and advice that
thank you.
Your board offered to
Thank you.
get this very fitting tribute.
Yeah, it is. It's
So
wonderful.
thank
And I wanted to just say quickly, Don and Mike have done a wonderful job administering this, and they expressed their concerns about decommissioning this, and how, to quote Don, he said he wanted to handle this with kid gloves, and we appreciate that. We really do. As veterans, we appreciate that and their concerns about this. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, please, for me? Okay.
All right,
Mike?
with all of that being said then, is there a motion to recommend approval of the decommissioning of the Veterans Memorial Park Advisory Board?
I would move.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Nick and seconded by Todd. Vote, please.
Lindquist?
Yes.
Stavanger?
Yes.
Naftagal?
Yes.
Dudley?
Yes.
Bigeman?
Yes.
Coleman?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. And we have a Veterans Park donation that is on the agenda for approval.
Yes, thank you. We have a monetary donation of $25 that was being proposed to us by Sue Ostis, who's a former city employee, in the memory of Jim Irish, and would like the funds to be used at Veterans Memorial Park. Of course, the funds would be donated into the general fund, which is where our operating budget largely relies on. This, of course, requires the approval of Park Board and consent agenda approval by the City Council, and staff would recommend approval.
All right. Are there any questions? And if not, is there a motion to recommend approval of the Veterans Park donation?
Move to approve.
Second. Approved by Mike and seconded by Ann. Roll call vote, please.
Lindquist?
Yes.
Challenger?
Yes.
Martigal?
Yes.
Sedley?
Yes.
Bingaman?
Yes.
Conlon?
Yes.
Weber? Yes. Thank you.
All right, wonderful. Next item is the election of the Parks and Recreation Board officers, and this would be for starting in 2020, January 2020 meeting. The first of the month, I guess, is when it starts, and would be effective with our January meetings. And that would be President Jim Stavanger and Vice President Ann Noctigal and Secretary Mike Begeman. So, are there any comments or any questions on that? And if not, is there a motion to approve that slate of officers?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved by Rick and seconded by Mick.
Thank you.
All right, roll call vote.
Lindquist?
Yes.
Challenger?
Yes.
Martigal?
Yes.
Sedley?
Yes.
Bingaman?
Yes.
Conlon?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and one final new business item we have is the 2020 Parks and Recreation Board committees. You've received distribution of those committee assignments, and are there any questions on that? If not, is there a motion to approve the Parks and Recreation Board committee assignments for 2020? Okay.
Second.
Moved by Ann and seconded by Todd. Roll call vote.
Lindquist?
Yes.
Challenger?
Yes.
Martigal?
Yes.
Sedley?
Yes.
Bingaman?
Yes.
Conlon?
Yes.
Weber?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our new business, and we will move on to the report of the director.
Yes, thank you. As you heard from Dan, Great Bear is opening on Friday. That is also the time frame in which our ice rinks will open as well, so those will get kicked off at that same time. Hopefully they make it through the weekend with the 40-degree weather, which is something we're always battling, you know, but and we've talked about off and on of maybe there's a better approach to that going forward, but as of right now, they're going to be open and available for use. Also want to let you know that I know Jackie's presented Levitt fee structure for non-Levitt events coming up, so you'd likely see that happen next month at the board meeting to establish those rates for non-Levitt events, and know that we're getting some interest there for using that facility outside of the Levitt events that are scheduled there on a regular basis. Sky informed me a couple days ago that we're again on track for exceeding 200,000 people through the Midco Aquatic Center, again for the third consecutive year. So that continues to be a popular venue for our community. Also wanted to let you know and acknowledge Tori's efforts. I know Mike has been working with the Vets Park Board over probably the last 5 years since he's been here. But Tori, probably for about 10 prior to that, was very actively involved in that as well, and so I didn't want to leave him out of the conversation. And so when Mike came on, we kind of divided and conquered a little bit, and so they both done a great job of working through that. So I would like to have Mike, if he could, give us a little update on the Buffalo Wall project.
Yeah, it's almost done. Okay, so all the stonework has been installed, concreted onto the structure wall, and the little side wing walls are complete. So the remaining work left to happen on the site is we've got to pour some curb and gutter back and do a little stone paver work, but that should be completed here hopefully in the next 2 weeks, depending on weather. And then so that'll pretty much wrap up the project, and we can open the street. And then in the spring we're gonna have a little bit of site restoration work, but it looks really, really good. I think it looks better than it did before. I think they took a lot of time and effort into building the art pieces, and it looks really nice. If you get a chance, I would go check it out.
Thanks, Mike. That's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Don? All right. No additional items have been added to our agenda after the deadline. No communications to the board have been received. Any open board discussion? Do take note that the January board meeting is being moved from January 15th to the 29th, so update your calendars if you have not already.
Rita will be sending out.
Yes,
An
after
outlook.
today's meeting, I will send out a bunch of calendar requests for all of you, for all the committee meetings and the board meetings for next year.
Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
No, good. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
All right. Meeting adjourned.